And we're here. Hi, I'm Hunter Kelly. This is Following the Sound at 92 NY, 92nd Street Y in New York. And I'm so happy to have Marissa R. Moss, author of the new book, Her Country: How the Women of Country Music Became the Success They Were Never Supposed to Do. Welcome, Marissa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. I mean, I've watched this book, the journey to this book unfold in real time in your articles and on the internet on Twitter over the years. And so to have it here, I guess it's been out for a week now.
Yeah, a week today.
Oh my gosh. So what's the response? I saw that, people are starting to have finished reading it. Like, what's the response been like so far?
Yeah, it's funny because, when you're a journalist, you get very used to people, you know, giving you kind of instant feedback. And now
Hmm.
now you have 300 plus pages to get through. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't tell me what you think right away? um, but it's been really great to see people talking about it and I hope it causes a little, difficult conversations and maybe a little bit of trouble here or there too.
Yes, I know that I have sent several copies around Nashville, just ordering online to sending them to certain people like, you need to read this,
That's awesome.
because, I was quoted in the book. This is really exciting for me, but thank you so much for the opportunity to tell some of the stuff that I've seen in the past 15 years, because women are the reason I love country music. Like I sometimes forget that I care about male artists just because the reason that I'm here in Nashville is because of the women. And so there's so many things in this book that I think are being talked about for the first time. But we're at a really um, this book comes out. Well, it's always an interesting time in country music.
Yeah, always. Too
I,
much.
I
Less
mean,
interesting times, please.
oh my gosh. So I just wanted to start out with, kind of setting the tone with you reading some passages from the book from page 6 and then page 21 that really kind of set the tone for, women in general have a hard time in country music, but then we've learned even more so in the past few years about women of color never getting the chance, queer women just now getting a voice in country music. So I wanted to start off with you reading these two passages, if you would.
Sure. Um, Politics has been and was at the fiber of country music all along. No musical form is apolitical, of course, and certainly not a genre that had been born out of segregation. At its inception in the 1920s, it was split into marketing race records for Black audience and hillbilly music for whites. This is not the story of all women in country music because there are so many of them that never made it to Nashville, never felt welcome because of the color of their skin or who they loved or the language they were born speaking. This book should include their stories and their voices, and this book is for them mostly, to show them that there is a place and a world that is trying to shift the paradigm for them, but never denying the truth.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing we often talk about with country music, that it's three chords and the truth, but
Yeah.
uh, whose truth? What truth? And so um I guess there let's just start off talking about Mickey Guyton's role in this book. Um because you're very on I mean, even some in some instances, before she started telling her truth with songs like Black Like Me and really stepping into that role. um yeah, I mean, she tried for so long to play by Nashville's rules. And yeah, so just that part of the story is fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I wanted to show Mickey's story and its entirety,
Hmm.
and not, obviously there's so much more to tell, and I kind of hope she writes a memoir one day or something. But
Oh yeah.
what I mean by that is I wanted to show her whole story and really kind of drive home that she had been in Nashville just as long as Casey and Marin
Hmm.
and many other artists. And that she had been exposed to country music from a really, really young age, watching Leanne Rhymes at a baseball game. And I wanted to tell, you know, the story of her becoming an artist as much as I wanted to show the hardship. And I think we sometimes leave that out too. Like we get very focused on the difficulties and the discrimination and the really terrible stuff, that we don't leave as much air for the stories, and the stories of how the music came about. And that was important for me to show too. But obviously I wanted to be kind of as really as truthful as possible as I could be in terms of, presenting the difficult stuff. And there were things in here that were hard for me to write that I didn't enjoy documenting, but I felt were really important to tell, a complete picture of these women's lives.
Oh yeah, and with Mickey especially, I think back to when we were doing our podcast, All Our Favorite People, and we had Mickey on, and she was just starting to talk about, I think Nipsey Hussle had died. So this was before George Floyd was murdered, and we were in the pandemic. And it was a shift to see with Mickey, like her actually talking about her identity as a Black woman. And for me as a gay man, doing All Our Favorite People was really the first time that I had started to talk about that in interviews as well. Just because when I was covering country music, I was a journalist, so I would leave myself out a lot of the time. But not seeing myself represented. And so I always had a lot of fun with Mickey. We did several things over the years together. But yeah, I never talked about being gay, and she never talked about being Black. And so that shift, eventually, leads us to, what are you going to tell her, which you write about her doing at CRS. Let's watch the video clip. Let's watch a video clip.
Oh boy, I need my tissues.
I know. So I mean, can you just talk about this song that Mickey had, where she Black Like Me, where she really stepped into her identity, and I mean, and wrote from that place of honesty, and then wow, like the impact that it had.
Yeah, I mean, it's like many things in the country music story, both inspiring and enraging at the same time. It's kind of like existence in this genre. But I mean, once she started singing, her truth, that's when she started being exposed and picked up on by, such a big audience, because there's so much hunger for that. Like the people kind of always assume that there's just one country fan or one type of person that seeks out country, and that's so bullshit. I mean, people all over the country, and not to mention all over the world, see themselves or want to see themselves in country music. And you see that with the reaction to Mickey writing What Are You Gonna Tell Her? And then Black Like Me, that just, went gangbusters on streaming. Obviously, radio wanted nothing to do with any of it. But, that's a whole other story I'm sure we'll talk about. But
oh yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
We'll get to that. But it was amazing to see her, kind of start to really blow up and step into that stardom that she, or that spotlight rather, that she deserves so much, by being, exactly herself.
Yeah.
And not that she wasn't before, like she's a country singer, and she put out country songs, and
yeah,
they were great. They just weren't getting played. But, really kind of being true to, the self that she came into as she, developed as an artist.
Yeah, and it goes back to something Amethyst Kia told me on Proud Radio that's always stuck with me. I was asking her about, coming out as a Black queer woman doing, Americana country adjacent stuff, and, especially in the South. And she was like, there was a little fear, but everything that I've, given up, I don't notice, because of all the opportunities that have come my way as I've been able to just speak from my experience. So, and I've seen that play out with Mickey.
Yeah.
Let's watch this clip of her playing Black Like Me at the freaking Grammy Awards.
I'm not the only one. white painted picket fences, far as you can see. And if you think we live in a land of the free, you should try to be, oh, black like me. Oh, and someday we'll all be free, and I'm proud to be, oh, black like me. Proud to be black like me.
I mean, it just that moment, and then her playing the Super Bowl. But I know,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but the story's not over. Like it's still a thing where, and this goes with Casey too, that you write about that. Even when a female artist, becomes really the face of the format to a lot of people on the coasts or outside of country, it still doesn't matter. It's just it's so depressing because when I go and look at the country radio charts, and the more that I am working in streaming, the farther and farther away I get from actually looking at the radio chart. And you write about this. It's like they almost want to. Yeah, I can get a little despondent.
Mhm.
I got a little sad and anxious today rereading the book because we're back. It just seems like we make progress, and we have to look at the progress, but also I think I've learned that nothing is going to change. I feel like nothing is going to change terrestrial country radio. I said it.
Yeah.
I said it. I feel like it's not even a battle worth fighting anymore. And
Yeah.
I see you saying that, you still want to be involved, and it's it's hard work. It's hard work. It's frustrating. It's like beating your head against a wall.
It is. And I mean, I tend to agree with you about radio. And unless there's some kind of radical intervention.
Mhm.
And that's not out of the question. I
Mhm.
mean, if labels kind of get to escape a lot of the blame in this game, because
Mhm.
they're just like, oh, radio, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But of course they could take some responsibility in this whole equation. People could go after the advertisers and say, hey, like,
Mhm. Yeah.
is it cool with you that your products are being advertised in a whole run of straight white men for hours on end, with like one token white lady in there every now and again?
Mhm.
Are you cool with that? But yeah, it's very, the women in this book especially, I think, Marin has a very unique story in that she's the one that does
Yeah.
get some radio play, but she, the way she uses that power is really uh inspiring, I think.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's going around the systems these
Yeah.
days. I just get mad because I do strongly believe that if a woman wants, or a queer artist or a Black artist wants that mainstream path,
Mhm.
wants to come into country music and, sing about trucks and, wear jeans and a flannel and drink bud or whatever, like the
Yeah.
stereotype is, and get played on country radio. That should be available
Yeah.
to those people. Um, but, you know, might be a pipe dream.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I just think about the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it's just after this is hard to say. You write about CRS in this book, Country Radio Seminar, and just watching Casey Musgraves. I mean, she started off from the very beginning, um, being not really not playing by the rules, really. And I don't know if I don't know if we had this conversation, but it was really, I think about Holly Williams before her.
Hmm.
Jason Owen, who managed Casey Musgraves, worked a lot with Holly Williams, and Holly had this song called "Keep the Change" that was kind of her. She had an album on Universal Music Group (UMG), and that was like her one song that she was like, "If this hits, fine." But then it just like died because of some weird overnight programming testing thing,
Hmm.
and she was like, "Okay, I'm done." And then the rest of the songs she released were artsy, and then she eventually went with
Artsy.
artsy, and
Yeah.
then she went with her next album being more towards Americana. And so really see Casey as, the next in line. I love what you say, what you write about in the book with her saying that, like, if you piss people off up front and you
Hmm.
just set the tone.
Yeah, I interviewed her, like maybe it was 2012 or 2013. I'm really bad with timelines, so you could imagine what a challenge it was to write a chronological book over 20 years.
Oh yeah.
But she said that to me when I interviewed her then, in 2013. I
Mhm.
think it was for American Songwriter. It was right before her debut came out, and she said that to me then. Like,
Mhm.
I would rather have an audience of a couple thousand or 100,000 or whatever it is for being myself than millions of fans for being
Mhm.
something different. And that kind of made it into a lyric and pageant material. I'd rather lose way. I always screw up lyrics, as like I try very hard not to sing them in public, so then I like get in my head and can't recite
Yeah.
them because I can't sing and it's really unpleasant. But yeah, she says, she'd rather, lose for being herself than win for being what she ain't.
Yeah. Well, I wanna watch. Yeah, let's watch. I'm going to call an audible here. We're going to go with, and this is the second clip, Kyle. No, this is the third clip. This is Casey performing Follow Your Arrow at the GLAAD Awards, which this song was such a huge moment when it won Song of the Year. I'll never forget just having Casey and Brandy Clark and Shane McAnally backstage, and just being like, wow, feeling seen as a gay person for the first time at the CMA Awards. It was such a huge moment. What do you think?
Yeah.
What as far as the book goes, what did Follow Your Arrow do for country music and carving a path for women that didn't exist before?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're kind of living it real time, it's sometimes hard to see
Hmm.
and the impact because you're in it. And uh, going back and kind of rebuilding that time and the power of what the song meant, and Casey as an ally meant, but also having Shane and Brandy up there at
Hmm.
the awards and making sure that they were visible and they were getting the credit. Um, that was so important, and just talking to both Shane and talking to Brandy about it too, and kind of rebuilding that time and just how, um, even that little bit of, it wasn't like Casey came out there and was like saying anything like, I don't, I mean, obviously I don't think it was radical at all. I think it's just
Hmm.
life, but um, in country music, it very much was. And
Yes.
she's so intentional about those choices. And that's what, like, if I were, again, I have no musical talent, but if I had any and were a famous musician, I can't imagine not wanting to harness my power in that kind of way. And she's so, it's part of what I really admire about her is that she's so intentional about those things. She's not going to sing a song about, you know, kiss lots of girls if that's what you're into and write it with two like cis straight white dudes.
Yeah.
She's going to bring queer people along with her
Hmm.
because she
Yeah.
knows that that's what's meaningful and impactful, and it's not just her standing out there and taking the spotlight as an ally.
Yeah.
um so it was it's a huge moment, I think.
Yeah. And it continues even with Starcrossed. I remember watching the film for Starcrossed and her having uh trans women of color all up in the video,
Hmm.
which is uh pioneering again for to be in country music. So let's watch this clip from the beginning, Casey, as an ally for the LGBTQ community.
Hello. I'm so proud to be here representing country music, and I just want to cheers everybody in this room that follows their arrow.
So good. I didn't want it to end.
I know. And that was before she was a regular at the Met Gala,
Yeah. Being so fabulous. I mean, I think we take it, like you said, you watch the movie for Starcross and you see so many different people in it. And you see Casey, doing album releases like she did with Pageant Material, with drag queens. And we sometimes you have to take a step back and just, because I don't want to say take it for granted, but she's been so committed to being who she is that we, I think sometimes don't kind of step back and saying, wow, like this is country music and she's doing this and she's pushing all of these different boundaries at the same time as making incredible music, like I was thinking that song was playing and there was also so much great lyricism in that song, like awesome wordplay and her voice sounds so good and it's got country instrumentation and it gets me going.
Yeah. And then she would go on to win the Album of the Year Grammy for Golden Hour. But you write about that. I think that may have been like one of the first times I met you in person was at the screening for Golden Hour, the film they made at the Planetarium here in Nashville. And just, I mean, that record winning Album of the Year all across the board, even at the CMA Awards as well. And then we get to page 235, which I would like you to read. This is after she'd won the Grammy for Album of the Year. And this is the station. This is a quote from a guy at a station in Birmingham, Alabama. I used to actually call into this station as a kid.
Oh boy.
And I called in so much. I think they may have I don't know if they had caller ID, but they knew me by voice. And I would actually go live on the air after concerts to give my recap. So And I also want to say this station 102.5 The Bull, it started out as WOW 102 in the 90s, and WCCK is the main station in Birmingham, and they played like the obscure stuff. They played like Linda Ronstadt's single that came out in 95, Walk On. They would play Shelby Lynn. So this bullshit right here really makes me sad because that's not the station I heard in the 90s as a little gay kid in Alabama. Read this bullshit.
Yeah, this is from CRS from a country radio seminar right after she won the Grammy. Grammys, plural. We tend to like and embrace artists who are interested or want to engage with the format, session moderator Tom Hanrahan of Birmingham's 102.5 The Bull said during the forum. My interaction with Casey has been hit or miss. I promise I haven't penalized her or any other artists, but from a humanity standpoint, people like to cheer on people who seem to want to row in the same direction and have connectivity. I haven't felt a whole lot of connectivity with her, but I haven't put her in the timeout chair.
Which she's been in the timeout chair since the first single. She's only had one top 10 radio hit. And even with all of this. So yeah, that just makes me so angry, but I get it. Like with CRS, I went there for years and I did interviews, and I would basically most of the time, like I would stay up in my hotel room and just do back-to-back interviews and then go to certain events. But it really the vibe there always just was a little unsavory to me the entire time. And I know a lot of people who worked in Nashville at the labels didn't like it either. But you kind of go and put up with this and try to make them, I guess, feel wanted, and
Yeah.
so they'll play your songs. But the thing is, like, if you're a woman, most of the times it doesn't matter, you know. I mean, you can like do whatever and they're still not going to play there. We've definitely gone through periods of that where it's just like such a desert. And then
Uh-oh.
yeah. I know we advertised that we were going to spill some tea. But I need to talk about this though. We just lost Naomi Judd, and it's been really hard for me because the
I'm
Judds
so
are my
sorry.
foundation. But I remember, the day that we found out, I was on the phone with Shelley Wright just talking about it, and one of the things that she said was, as virtuoso as Wynonna is as a singer, as great as a songwriter as Naomi is, as much charisma as they have on stage, they had to be that beautiful. They had to be that gorgeous and outgoing. Same with Dolly Parton. We think about, even when I had Dolly on Proud Radio, she's able to walk this line like nobody else, of like saying, supporting the queer community, but at the same time, not like, it's just a master class. But also Dolly is older than my parents, and so like, at what point do we update the narrative in country music?
Yeah. I mean, first, just want to give a little shout out to the piece that you wrote for Rolling Stone about Naomi. It was just, I read it a couple times. Just gorgeous writing and just beautiful, and just everyone's watching. Everyone who's watching has already read that, but if you haven't, go look it up. It's just stunning. But yeah, I mean, that comment that I just read from that program director, what does that mean? You want to have connectivity with an artist to play them. Like, I thought that connectivity was supposed to come from the songs. I don't, you want artists to have a little bit of star power, but beyond that, like, who cares? And the expectations on women are so extreme. Either to, I have a story in there with Casey where a program director is talking openly about her legs and like what her legs look like. And then when a woman pushes back, Casey or anyone else, then they get labeled a bitch or difficult. And then you're penalized. Like, he's basically openly saying, like, she didn't make me feel like, my tender little male heart feel coddled, so I didn't play her songs anymore, or ever, which to me is insane. And why would you want to play ball in an industry like that? Like, when people give women shit for leaving country music or branching out a little bit in their style, Like, how could you even blame them for wanting to find a new audience or a bigger, or different audience or more dynamic audience somewhere else? Because they're having to deal with that,
Yeah.
like the second they speak out or say something or show a little power, they're difficult. But they have to be nice and they're not going to get played, but they're not going to get played anyway. So I don't know. I get a little fired up talking about it, but
Yeah, I do too. And it's just really weird because I think about, well, for so long we had Carrie, Miranda, Taylor were the big three for so long. Taylor got, it's one of those things where you see Taylor got so big that country music couldn't contain her. And it's just really bizarre because Taylor just won country female at the Billboard Music Awards.
Did she?
Which I didn't watch because they had MW on. And I wasn't interested in that. But just a personal thing.
No.
Not ready to make nice. But but she won. She's still the biggest female artist in country music, even though she has not, her re-releases from 10 years ago. But I think it's one of those, who was Taylor going to emulate? Like, who was the person who got so big and was able to stay in country music? Like, I feel like the same thing kind of happened to Shania Twain. And you talk about in your book, post 9/11 and post the Chicks, country music, anything that was really pop oriented that had been hot and selling a bunch, which is the weird thing, because if the labels love anything, it's money. But they will shut off that pipe to keep the culture, it's like keep the culture, I'm going to say it, pure, which is a dirty word.
Yeah, say it.
Y'all say it.
Say it.
So yeah, let's talk about Shania. Like, just seeing her.
Let's go.
Yeah, you just started to see her songs not perform, and even yeah. I wonder what you make of that.
Yeah, and it's a strange thing going back and researching this book too, and like seeing how once Shania's songs started to not perform as well, or Faith's, I know you and I talked about that for the book, the way that they were sort of then written about in the press in those moments. It was like, there's one article that was like, country's women lose hit magic, as if like, and it put the responsibility on the women themselves. Like, the women were losing the magic, not what the fuck is going on that's making this happen.
Yeah.
It was the women's fault, kind of. It was like, is the single not right? Are they doing something wrong? It was really putting it on the women, as opposed to kind of questioning what was going on around it in the culture. And that was really aggravating. And obviously a lot of, you have to sort of sit back and ask yourself why women feel this need to kind of cross over sometimes. Like, I don't think I did it consciously when I was younger, like as a teen or kid, like watching these artists, but now as an adult, it makes a lot of sense, like why you would break out of, or try to at least.
Oh, are you there, Marissa? So I think we might be frozen. Am I frozen? I don't think so. Oh gosh. I'm Hunter Kelly, and this is, if I'm still here, I feel like I'm speaking into the void, but this is Following the Sound at 92nd Street Y. Here's Lindsay. Okay, so I'm still going. So hopefully we can get Marissa back. Her book, Our Country, How the Women of Country Music Became the Success They Were Never Supposed to Be. So, I mean, we're having some great conversations here. And so while we're waiting for Marissa to come back, let's watch a video. I want to watch Beyonce and the Dixie Chicks with Daddy Lessons, number 5. I wanted to talk about Shania for a minute, but it's really the Chicks. And I say they are the Chicks now, but at the time they're Dixie Chicks. Let's watch that clip if we can.
With his gun, with his head held high, he told me not to cry. Oh, Daddy said shoot. Oh, Daddy said shoot. With his right hand on his rifle, he swore it on the Bible. My daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said shoot. He held me in his arms. He told me to be strong. He told me when he saw you up to keep those hands up. When trouble comes to town, men like me come around. Oh, my daddy said shoot. Oh, my daddy said they sound tired, but they don't sound happy. They got money, but they don't have cash. They got jewelry, but they don't have hate. I
Phew.
Hey, you're back.
Modern times.
Yeah, modern times. So we just watched the clip of the Chicks. I was kind of dancing around it, but really the biggest thing in my time coming into country music in 2005 that we've had to overcome is the Chicks and how they were the biggest act in country music, the one that crossed over. Because I always look at it as, here we are at 92 NY, okay, based out of New York. At ABC Radio, I worked with people in New York and Los Angeles. All these people at the country record labels, they have to go to New York and LA. And so when they would go to New York and LA in that time, the Chicks in 2002, 2003, they're the ones who are we're going to be proud of. Like today I would say like Marin and Casey and Mickey that you write about, like,
Yeah.
hey, here we go. So the fact that they were, comparing to what happened to the Chicks versus what we've seen in the past year with Morgan Wallen is so telling, and really it's a turning point for me in how I deal with country music, because I feel like I have seen such, I feel like this format and the audience and the way that it operates has shown their true colors all over again. In that they will do anything to protect a cishet white man, but they will, but women are disposable, and it's sickening.
Yeah. I mean, when I watched that clip, I'm so glad I got booted back in time, or booted, whatever the word is, to see that. And whenever I watch that clip, I just it's just insanely good. Like, and just, again, one of those moments where you're like, it's just huge. It's just so significant. And, but then of course, like Alan Jackson was it, like, famously kind of walked out of that
Yeah.
performance because I had a source tell me for the book that someone was, they overheard someone saying, "What's that bitch doing there?" about Beyonce. And the chicks thing, especially when in the context of Mr. Wallen, as if like it's difficult to say his name. We dispose of them so easily, and as you know, you were saying earlier, country music loves money, but
Yeah.
all the money that they were willing to leave on the table with the chicks in favor of that purity, as you said, is so stunning to me. They were at the height of everything. They were big, huge in country music, huge in pop. They were at Lilith Fair. They were everywhere. And country music was fine with severing that relationship to uphold some kind of, I don't know, purity, I guess, as you said. And this, what turned into this really like jingoistic, nationalistic, folded into that vibe that was happening at the time post 9/11.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine what they feel as artists. Like I've heard some people in country music sort of talk about how they felt a little left behind when they put out this last record, Gaslighter, and they didn't do the customary big like country music party and all the events in Nashville. And it's like, why the hell would they ever do that? Like why would you want to, like, it's it's like going back to your trauma. I don't know.
Well, and I feel like that the reaction to that CMA performance explains it, because you have all of this crap coming from the fans, and then just I think something like that clip that we just played was not an official Vivo CMA ABC clip. That is, somebody put that up as a fan because the clip was taken down because it was getting so much hate.
Yeah.
So it's just like, why would they come back when they can go and it's another thing. They left country music and won album of the year at the Grammys and were able to play they're still able to play arenas. They have this tour coming up. And so the effect of that, though, was that nobody says anything. Like it got to the point in country music after that was like the thing was they were able to say, "Oh, you'll get chicked if you say anything." And it took, it wasn't until Casey and really Marin too. Marin you've interviewed Marin a lot more than I have. I've only interviewed Marin once on a red carpet. So I'm putting it out there. I want her on this series. Hopefully it'll happen later this year. Marin is fascinating though, because I feel like she's been the one to able to straddle, like Casey, being artistic, saying what she wants to say, while also still staying in country music.
Yeah. That to me is, for all of these women, the music comes first, obviously, and what I'm interested in. But then what does fascinate me so much about Marin is, like you said, she's played on country radio, circles around this town, is doing well. I'm less embedded in those stats and all of that these days, but I think it's heading towards number one. I'm not quite sure, but she's had country radio number ones. She kind of plays that game on her own terms, does the radio remotes and like she does all that stuff. And then she'll show up at the Americana, Music Awards and sing backup to the High Women. She won't even sing a lead on a song they do. Or she'll, go out and protest for, Black Lives Matter on the streets with us. And she'll, really speak her mind but not just speaking her mind. She will, work to apply that allyship in how she moves about, in country music and the work that she does. And that's so fascinating and impactful to me. And how she kind of continues to use that power and just again is so aware of her role and the choices she makes and what they signify.
Okay. Well, hey, let's watch this clip of Marion. This is a song called Dear Hate that she put out, and she's performing it on the Bobby Bones Show, which I want to hear you explain what the Bobby Bones Show is to country music. 'Cause- okay. What is it? Oh,
Oh, sorry. I thought we were watching the video first.
now I'll put you on the spot.
You put me on the spot. I'm trying to not get in trouble. No, just kidding. I don't care. Bobby Bones is, you see him on, I think, American Idol, right? He's on there. And the power balance is all messed up in country music, but he is the most important, I guess, country radio DJ, tastemaker. And everyone kind of has to go on his show and I guess kiss his ass a little bit, or not. But his brand, at least for a while, was kind of like, I'm the asshole, like, and that's so, like, how can you imagine a woman, let alone a Black woman, being like, in country music, being like, my brand is asshole? Like,
No,
you wouldn't last for a second. Like, that's just not something that's available, or ever will be available. If Mickey was like, I'm gonna have a show and my brand's gonna be asshole, I'm gonna be like, yeah, that's so, like, talk about privilege. But
yes,
yeah, and Bobby Bones is one of those people that he holds a lot of power. And I think there's a lot of people in country music like that, not trying to only call out Bobby specifically, that hold and wield that power in whatever way they choose. And they could make those choices in very meaningful and very specific ways, and whether or not they do is, I guess that's the question, right?
Yeah. Well, no, you did a great job. I feel like a little bit of an asshole for making you do that.
Someone's going to show up at my door and I'm like, we need to remove you.
I've gotten that call at 11 p.m. Here's the Dear Hate video clip of Marion at the Bobby Bones Show.
Dear Hate, I saw you on the news today. Like a shark that takes my breath away, you fall like rain, cover us in drops of pain. I'm afraid that we just might drown. Dear Hate, well, you sure are colorblind. Your kiss is the cruelest kind. You could poison any mind. Just look at mine. Don't know how this world keeps spinning round and round. You were there in the garden, like a snake in the grass. I see you in the morning, staring through the looking glass. You whisper down through history and echo through these halls. But I hate to tell you, love's gonna conquer all.
Yes, Marion. So one of the things that Marion said in the book, this is on page 271. This is, you talked to Marion, and this is after the Morgan Wallen situation. And I just want to say here, when we're just being honest, that situation is not resolved. And I don't care what award show he appears on. The fact that he has never cleaned up what he said on Good Morning America bothers me, and I have asked everybody that I know on his team when he's going to address that, and it's not happening. So I feel like I personally am at an impasse there. I keep asking the question, and I get my answer over and over again, and so I move on with my life. And this is so. Also, hosting. I mean, look what you're doing with this book, in your work. What I've been able to do thanks to Apple Music over at Proud Radio. I'm like, okay, I think this to my, and not in a crazy way, but like I'm just like, who's out there that's gonna like speak up about this? And then I'm like, oh wait, I think a lot of people see what I'm doing as that. So and I just want to say that to you, Marissa, with this book. Like, I think that sometimes we can feel like, oh, we're just like looking at here, like, oh, who's gonna come save us or whatever. And it's like, oh, we're the ones. And that's what I see in this quote from Marin too. This was so powerful. If you can read that.
Sure. I was like, fuck this place. But then I was like, if I leave, everything will stay exactly the same. I thought I need to stay in the ring and get the shit kicked out of me a little bit longer. And it's going to help more people than how I'm hurting now. There's obviously so much work to be done, but I think I'm willing to have the hard conversations and also identify myself as part of the problem to get to a better spot, because I don't want to leave Nashville or country music. And that was Marin speaking there.
Yeah, that's Marin. Yeah, and that's the thing. Clint, my partner, recently changed jobs, and so we were looking at like, okay, do we leave Nashville? I mean, because just all of the, just politically, the anti-trans, anti-LGBT stuff going on at the state level is disgusting.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it really has, like, being around country music with all these things for Naomi recently, and just how ingrained the music is. It's just like, I don't want to leave it, but I also don't want to just sweep everything under the rug, because that's what we've done for decades now, and it gets us nowhere. And it also makes the music suck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's no coincidence that the music being made by the women that talk about in this book is, in my opinion, some of the best music being made. Talk about that 3 chords and the truth and all. But I mean, I really related to everything that Marin says in that quote, and still do. I mean, I feel like I still think about it because, I have 2 kids, 5 and 8, and I have moments where I'm like, how can I raise children in this state, in Tennessee, and that is it a safe place for them, and will it be a safe place for them, and allow them to be exactly who they are. And I struggle with that just as a human. Marin's struggle as a famous artist. It's a little bit different and a heavier responsibility, but I think about that a lot. And also what she said about that difficult thing of identifying yourself as part of the problem and how you've been, and that hard process of identifying any harm maybe you've caused. Me, not you. In that process, though, that was something that was a part of this writing process too, is like really interrogating my role and my work, and that had to happen for the book to be as intersectional as I wanted it to be. And it's not always a pretty thing, and it's not always comfy, but that's all right.
Okay, so we need to open this up to questions now. So if y'all have any questions, go ahead and put those in the comments section and they will get to me. We do have a question from New Zealand. Our beloved Cassie Roma in New Zealand has a question. With so many more avenues and platforms available to research, share, and be more educated about the inherent inequity of how country music as an industry, and especially country music as a kingmaker, not queen maker. Do you think the more we share and talk about women and queer and Black inequity in country, move the dial and start to embed lasting change?
I mean, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, right?
Mhm.
You have to keep doing it. Will it change radio or those things? I don't know. Like I was talking to someone earlier today, just privately about, like, I wonder, like, I would love to know what Nashville's hiring looks like for the past 2 years. Have they continued to just hire the same, mostly straight cis men and occasional women, or has that changed? And
Mhm.
I have my theories, but I don't know. I don't want to theorize.
Need facts. Jada Watson, are you?
Yeah. But I mean, the change comes from more, and this isn't the only change, but important part of it is more people feeling seen and feeling like they have a place in the industry, and they will feel more free to, I think, make music and find a community, whether it's in listening to Proud Radio or Black Opry, which is a kind of a review of Black country artists that travels the country and is really wonderful. And it's those things, I think, like seeing your dream that you've maybe repressed or been fearful of pursuing. And yeah, I think you just you have to keep going, because at the end of the day, we all love country music. We don't love everything about it. We don't love everything about the culture. Some of it we hate very much.
Yeah.
But none of us would be here if it weren't for love of the song.
Yeah. And for these icons who have come before in this format, and also the ones, who would love to cross over. Like, here's the thing about Beyonce showing up at the CMA Awards, having written a country song. She's from Texas, like the biggest icon in culture would probably do a country record. Yeah. So I just, getting back to your first thing about the women we don't know, like, I'm just all of the music and opportunities and exploration that we don't know of what would happen because of, and that was the thing, at the beginning I had you read that thing about the genres, the entire idea of R&B and country came out of segregation and marketing, that race records would go to Black audiences, hillbilly music would go to white audiences, and it was only for marketing. And just to see that's, that was something. Cam was really the first person to really make me understand that. Like, I knew, like, oh yeah, they had these different charts, but just to realize that was only 100 years ago, A, and B, it was marketing and it can be undone. Like, so, right. So taking that, realizing that that paradigm does not have to exist.
Yeah.
It's been so freeing, and I think that's a big thing to unlock. Is like, this is not something that God Almighty has ordained from the beginning of time.
Yeah, that's something I really wanted to chip away at in the book too, and that, like, the whole concept of authenticity in country music. Like you said, I mean, everything that exists in country music is not the music itself, but the industry we've built around it is, born out of a marketing construct and born out of segregation. And because we created those things, we're the only ones that can undo them. Yeah. White people. And we, like you said, we talk about it like it's this I mean, you said it perfectly. Like, God came down from heaven and created, like authentic country man and tight jeans. And that's just it's a load of shit, obviously. And the way we use it and the way we wield that authenticity thing is to keep people out, to keep queer people, women, Black artists, artists from all across the spectrum, non-binary, Latinx, and we use that as the gatekeeping mechanism. It's like it's so coded, like, well, that's not authentic country. What does that mean? I mean, that could be a whole, I mean, there has been books written on it, but especially as it we've seen it applied to talking about Mickey, that she's not authentic country. Like, what, we can see right through that, because she's from Texas. She grew up on dirt roads. She sings with a twang. She writes country songs. Like, that's authentic country. The only thing different is that she's a Black woman singing you those country songs, and that strikes you as not authentic. Or even someone like Orville Peck. I know we're supposed to be talking about women, but whatever.
Well, Orville's a homosexual.
Yeah. In case you don't know. And I find him so fascinating because he plays with that idea of authenticity so well, and like kind of calls you on that bullshit. And like he, like in the way he presents and toys with his mask, and he sort of takes back that power of like, I know you're going to say I'm not authentic country, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a little bit of that power back in how I present myself to you, and it's all a mess.
Yeah. So whenever I get really anxious and sideways with the state of country music and thinking like, oh, I don't belong here, and that's something that, it's like I can think, and I mean, and I've thought, like, even in the middle of everything, it was just like, like, is this my place? When I go back and I'm able to work on and champion the music I love, like with Proud Radio, that's where I get my energy. So I just wanted to end this by highlighting some new female acts that we both want everybody to go check out. So I will go first, and then you can let everybody know. So Gina Veneer, I just had on Proud Radio. She's a queer woman, and she came to me, actually. I'd played her on the show before, but it was Ward Gunther, who does the Whiskey Jam, who was like, had sent her new song to me, which is called Nora Jane, and it's about a woman thinking about bringing her girlfriend home to meet the family, and there's all this fear in the beginning, and then as it plays out, they accept her, and it's okay. Which has been my experience with my really Southern family. Oh, that's another thing I want to say. I have been in the middle of a shitstorm on social media with people threatening my life and saying that I'm, going to hell and all this shit. And then 2 days later, they go away, and you just keep living your life. So, and I think, there's a lot of fear. I think sometimes I was always like, okay, if these, you saw it with like Chris Stapleton when he said Black Lives Matter, or Dolly. You remember when Dolly said, of course, Black Lives Matter. And there were people trying to cancel her. And I was like, she is country music. You're not going to do that. Like, it didn't. And then people move on. And so, I don't know. I just think that a lot of the artists in country music who don't speak up about these basic things, where just for respecting human beings, I want to offer them, if they're listening, that, hey, you can go ahead and say it, and it'll be like 2 days, and then nobody will think about it. Like Garth Brooks, like he's, had We Shall Be Free out. He still sells out shows, My other thing is that this past year or so, I've realized that maybe they don't want to, maybe they don't some of
Yeah, that's a hard
yeah.
that's
It's
a
like,
hard
oh
thing to come
wow.
to.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you don't think that maybe. Okay, that's why
Yeah.
you don't say it, which is dark as hell.
Yeah, but
Um,
I mean, it's got. I mean, it's
yeah,
true. I think in certain people.
yeah, certain people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I did not mean to put all that on Gina Veneer, but I needed to say that was something else I needed to say. Gina Veneer did not say that and does not endorse what I just said per se. Also, I want to give a shout out to Mia Byrne. She has some great new music coming up. Mia is a trans woman who she's really at the center of the country queer space. And so I cannot wait for everybody to hear her upcoming album because I helped sequence it and get all her materials together. So yes, it's fun to put my A&R hat on.
Wow.
Awesome. So who should everybody go check out?
Gosh, there's so many. I always like go blank when I get this question. I need to like come in with a list because there's so many that I love. I love Morgan Wade right now, who I like. I think I have a bit of a hope that she can do sort of what Marin does in that she can still have maybe a little bit of sort of quote mainstream country music or country radio success and still very much be herself. I just went, what is it? I have no concept of time. 2 nights ago to see Joy Oladokun, and she's, I guess, country adjacent.
I play her on Apple Music Country. So
yeah. I mean, every person I saw her at a club here in Nashville called the Basement East, and on the way out, everyone behind me was like, "This is the last time we're going to see her." It's such a little, club, and it's not even that little. But she's incredible. I love Emily Scott Robinson, Amethyst Key I've been listening to a lot. Also Layla McCalla, also all the women, Allison Russell from Our Native Daughters, and Kelsey Walden has a great new album coming out soon. And there's just so much. Like and you have like such an amazing endless pool to play from on Proud Radio and all of you do over at Apple Music, Brittany Spencer, Raina Roberts, like there's an endless, and I have some of them on the playlist at the back of the book. It just shows, there's no shortage of artists that are playing the Black Opry. They have more artists than they can book, and that shows
the Singing Shaman, New Kind of Outlaw. So I put these up strategery behind me. You mentioned Dorje, the Singing Shaman, who I just adore. Her album, New Kind of Outlaw. Of course, your book. And then I just got this. Vinyl Me Please has pressed Revolution, Miranda's record.
I know. I need to get that
on vinyl. And it just listening to it, Miranda really, we haven't talked about Miranda in this thing, but there will be books about Miranda Lambert.
Yeah.
Once she allows them to be written,
I guess. That's why I said that in the introduction. I'm like, there will be books about Miranda.
But Miranda really, I always say this, Miranda is the most, as far as like an artist over the past 20 years who's had their own path commercially, but also just like being able to, I said this, she's like Merle Haggard and Emmylou Harris rolled into one, because she's such a songwriter, does her own, it's the Texas thing. Like in every, Marin, Mickey, I can't believe we didn't talk about Texas. Okay. Oh, we got one more question and then we will call it. But seriously, go, if you have not read Her Country. This for me it fills in so many dots and points a way forward for us. By illuminating what Mickey, Casey, and Marin, and even Miranda have been able to do in finding their audience. Okay, Leslie asks, the Americana Music Award nominations just came out, and there are so many incredible women, including LGBTQ+ and women of color nominated, like Brandi Carlile, Allison Russell, Yola, our beloved Aaron Lee Tashian. What are some of the differences between Americana and country music that you can attribute to this?
Yeah, I mean, Americana is such. Brandi Carlile always refers to Americana as the island of the misfit toys,
Mm-hmm.
and it is, and it's funny because I'll go to Americana Fest and I'll see artists that are way more, I guess you would call way more country than some artists I might see during CMA
Mm-hmm.
Fest. But Americana has taken on this role to kind of embrace and nurture artists that aren't getting played on country radio too.
Mm-hmm.
Americana was this thing, and now it's kind of become even bigger out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Because where do artists like that, Brandi Carlile is kind of bigger than everything right now, but where did Brandi Carlile fit? Where does Allison Russell fit? There are just so many artists that fall into that category. And I was doing a book reading over the weekend, and someone asked a really interesting question. Was like, are there kind of downsides to that? Like, are people in country saying, well, this artist is going to be successful and can find a place in Americana, so does that kind of hurt them in terms
Mm-hmm.
of their mainstream country career? And I don't know. It's a very complicated question, I think.
Yeah.
But I do see that people, I'm all about community and where you can find it, where you find that,
Mm-hmm.
your fellow artists in your community and your audience and all those things. And Americana gives so many artists that right now. And you have to kind of, shout it out for that. And I think it's because of the artists are really building that themselves and,
Mm-hmm.
Making, like Allison Russell says, a rainbow coalition,
and
that's where it fits and it's embraced, and I hope it will trickle over.
I found out something a few months ago that at one point this Country Music Association, the CMA Awards, was going to add like an Americana category. This might have been in the 90s, and it didn't happen. And so because that was the thing, and you still see it happening. Like when Jason Isbell was nominated for CMA Album of the Year for the Nashville Sound. You see it with, back in the day, Nickel Creek would perform on the CMA Awards. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou would be, one Album of the Year and was a huge, it's kind of like the stuff that, again, the people in Nashville were proud to show to show everybody else. So I would kind of see the CMA voting as aspirational, of like, this is what we would love country music to be creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a weird divide. And I may have been biting off more than I could chew, but for a long time when I was working in mainstream country music mainly, I was really like, I didn't like that divide at all.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that so much of the creativity that used to make country music a little weird was just not getting to mainstream country at all. And it just felt like it was making mainstream country more of a cesspool of backed up non-creativity. And that's a blanket statement. You have artists who, I think Eric Church, Stapleton, Miranda, who could totally, like, I don't know. It's just, they have that overlap, but it's just, I hate there being a wall between the two. And that's kind of the thing, with getting to know Brandi Carlile better lately. I think seeing her sing She's Got You at Patsy Cline's birthday party where the Highwomen debuted, it was like, oh my gosh, country, like, and now like she's been at all these Naomi tributes, her first 3 concerts with the Judds. And it just, country music as a format is worse off because she doesn't feel like she can call herself a country artist.
I know, but yet she still does that hard work of trying to like continuously meld the two.
Yeah.
She's still doing it, even though, country music is country music.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So yeah, I don't know. That's another thing of serenity prayer about. But I will say, when those Americana nominations came out, I was like, oh yeah, these are my people now, and I'm really glad to be, able to have these people's phone numbers more. That sounds like a brag, but it just is because,
Own it, you know?
like,
Own
oh
it.
yeah, it's like these are the people that I work with on the show, and that I'm able to, you know, yeah. So I don't know. My whole thing has always been wanting to, the stuff that shakes country music up and makes it interesting. That's what's always kept me alive. So anything
Yeah.
to, yeah, just creatively keep it alive is where I'm gonna be invested. Well, I could just we could talk forever, but I know that you have your two youngins, and I have my 5 dogs who need to go
5?
potty. Yeah, we have
Wow.
5 dogs.
I did not know you had 5 dogs. That is a
Doxy.
lot.
Okay, I'll give a plug for their Instagram account at DoxyCam, DOXIE Cam. So trying to monetize those dogs, get some sponsorship money.
Work it, you know?
Thank you, Marissa Moss.
Thank you so much.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
And I guess that's it. Holy crap.
Holy crap. Thank you so much for having me on and for talking to me for this book
Yeah.
and just for being you and doing the work that you are. And it's so important and inspiring and, changing some shit in real time. And,
Yeah.
we love to see it.
Yeah, we're here. We're present. We're showing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the mustaches.